In the words of Jake Peralta, Trump does him. And that's why we're all going to die. And also, everything is going to be fine.
Some people aren't going to like you. I remember thinking like, yeah, I'm definitely not going to stand up in front of an audience and be like, I command you to whatever.
Oh, well, you had to be there. No, I didn't, because that's why we invented stories. So I, in fact, didn't gotta be there.
Welcome back, rhetoric nerds, to Rhetorically Speaking, a podcast about how we use language and language uses us. I am your hostess with the mostest, Lee Pierce, she, they pronouns, hater of cliches, and lover of spoilers. Right now, I'm fixing to spoil Season 7 of Brooklyn Nine-Nine by revealing the twist at the end of Season 6. The spoiler's only a little bit, though. My focus is actually on a side story featuring Sergeant Terry Jeffords, played by the hunky and hilarious real-life Terry Crews, who stumbles onto perhaps the greatest anti-cliche of all time. Before we talk about the cliche, though, the anti-cliche, let's talk about the actual cliche. The cliche offender of this particular episode is, unfortunately, the motorcycle-riding, leather-wearing, badass Detective Rosa Diaz. The cliche of concern, face the facts. You know, face the facts. Someone said it to you the last time you tried to be, optimistic about something. You said, oh no, they're just angry. We'll get back together once they calm down. And then your live, laugh, love cheeseball best friend was like, you've got to face facts. They're not coming back. In the Season 6 finale, Terry has just discovered that after years of being the second in command of the beloved goofball Brooklyn precinct, the New York Police Department doesn't have enough money to pay him now that he has increased in rank to lieutenant. As a result, Terry receives news that he will be transferred to Staten Island. The phrase will be is important later. Staten Island is, of course, a strategic choice because it is largely considered the armpit of New York according to most city dwellers. I don't really know anything about this other than what I hear, because I live in what city dwellers call upstate New York, or what upstate New Yorkers call central New York, and therefore pretty much all of New York City seems like an armpit to me. I swear to God, that whole city smells like urine, gasoline, and cheese sandwiches, not always in that order. So Terry decides, in a very specific linguistic move that will occupy our attention for the rest of this podcast, that he's going to just outright refuse to acknowledge the transfer. Yes, I said that right. He's going to refuse to acknowledge the transfer, which is not the same as saying he's refusing to acknowledge the transfer. Let's observe.
Are you supposed to be getting ready to transfer to Staten Island?
That's not real.
It's pretty real last week.
That's before I decided to pretend it wasn't. I'm in denial.
Most people who are in denial don't usually say they're in denial.
That's because they're in denial about being in denial. But I'm not in denial. I'm in denial.
Is Jeffords' brain okay for this mission?
Yes, sir. For this and all future 9-9 missions, which I'll definitely be a part of. Let's go.
Maybe we need to refresh exactly what the word real means in this context. For something to be real, it has to actually be happening, or have happened, and any remote possibility that could be happening otherwise needs to be eliminated. That Terry has received a letter from the precinct has happened. The letter arrived. The letter is a fact. That Terry will be transferred to another precinct is, however, not real. It's perhaps likely, probable, impending, but it's not certain. Why? Because things in the future aren't a fact, they aren't a certainty. That's why we call it, the future. When people start speaking about the future as if it is real, which we all do all the time anytime we make a plan or decide to worry about something, we're in the future. When we do that, we are said to be living in a counterfactual or hypothetical state of being, also known as the as if, as in act as if you are having a good time, or behave as if this city doesn't smell exactly like a cheese sandwich. We live in the counterfactual all the time. We worry about what's going to happen. We fantasize about what's going to happen. We think about what would have happened if that one thing that happened hadn't happened. And we are all perfectly capable, one might even say required, to live in the counterfactual while also living in other counterfactuals, all the while remaining firmly grounded in the factual. Just because I think about what would have happened if my mom were still alive, or what she would think if she could listen to my podcast, doesn't mean I go get in my car and drive to see my very dead mother. Despite what our cliche-riddled political culturescape tells us, we are perfectly equipped to face the facts while not facing the facts all at the same time. Yet when Terry very explicitly announces to the entire world that he has decided to acutely take up this condition of existence, everyone starts to treat him like a total weirdo. In the context of the show, Terry's choice is just kind of like comedic relief to parallel the main storyline of the episode, which is getting Commissioner Kelly to admit to illegal wiretapping. It's supposed to be funny that Terry is self-aware about being in denial about the quote-unquote reality of his situation. That's why when he says, "I'm not in denial, I'm in denial," Captain Holt responds by asking, "Is Jeffords broken?" Holt's is a rhetorical question. He knows Terry is not, in fact, broken. He asks as if Terry is broken. Holt is also in a counterfactual about Terry's counterfactual. What we have here is a triple-layered contradiction that at first seems just like comedic relief. The superficial and obvious read is Jeffords is being ridiculous, except he's not. Jeffords is, in fact, the most logical one of the whole group. Think about it. Jeffords is both admitting and not admitting that something terrible is going to happen leaving the precinct. Rosa wants him to just admit that it's terrible, but Terry refuses. But he doesn't simply refuse by saying, "I'm not in denial, nothing's wrong." That wouldn't be funny. Plenty of people convince themselves things aren't wrong all of the time. Every one of us, as mortal beings, is currently plummeting toward our own inevitable death, and yet we spend our days sitting on couches, watching TV, or counting beans in our cubicle. We live life as if today were guaranteed. I'm just like watching some TV today. Tomorrow I will definitely do the fill in the blank thing that really matters. And then we live life as if tomorrow we're not guaranteed. Hence we sit on the couch living vicariously through fictional or fictionalized characters whose dramatic and eventful lives give us refuge from our own disappointing fallibility. In short, you are Terry Jeffords. You're not in denial. You're in denial. Terry is using a rhetorical figure called antanaclasis. Don't ask me to pronounce the Greek, but basically it means reflection, an anti or against, and then the word classis, breaking. It's a single word or phrase that is repeated, but in two different senses, so that the word actually becomes two different words. Here are some examples from Wikipedia. Although we're apart, you're still a part of me. That's Blueberry Hill by Fats Domino. Time isn't wasted when you're getting wasted. That's I Love College by Asher Roth. The idea behind antanaclasis is so endemic to human nature, it's absolutely shocking how absent the figure is from our regular speech patterns. Something can be one thing and then also be another thing. We don't like that. It fucks with our head, but it's a fundamental truth of human existence. Hence, we like to cite dictionaries for the meanings of words instead of using rhetorical tropes to play with language and give expression to all of the complexities of the human condition. Oh, there's another denial. We run around acting like words mean a specific thing when in fact words just mean other words. For Jeffords, there's denial, which is straight up convincing oneself thoroughly that nothing is wrong. For example, when people say that black men are incarcerated at alarmingly disproportionate rates because, well, they're criminals. That's thorough and resolute denial that there is a systemic racist logic underlying America's criminal justice system. Or when my liberal siblings in rhetorical arms give me the whole anything as long as it's a Democrat. Maybe, but let's be real. Biden sucks. Sucks. He's not Trump, I'll give you that, but let's call a spade and not put glitter on the neoliberal patriarchy. Then there's denial, which is what Terry is currently articulating and experiencing. What's that? It's the disavowal of one reality while simultaneously living in the same reality. When Holt asks rhetorically if Jeffords' brain is broken, it seems like he's mocking Terry's dissociation of one form of denial from another. For logical people, quote unquote logical, like Holt, denial is just denial. But we all know that isn't true. We just use cliches to prevent us from coming to grips with the reality of multiple layers of denial as a mechanism for survival. When Holt asks, is Jeffords broken? He actually makes Jeffords' point. Holt knows Terry isn't broken. He is of sound mind and body, as they say. But Jeffords' strange use of language also seems broken. Holt, like Jeffords, is currently existing in two states of reality at once, and neither is more or less quote-unquote real. Jeffords isn't broken, but he's also broken. Holt and Jeffords both exist, like all of us, in what we call factual and counterfactual realities. The reality of the actually is and the realm of the what if. Rosa, in the meantime, is firmly committed to getting Terry to live exclusively in the realm of the factual, the what is. And so she deploys the cliche, you've got to face facts.
Well, since we got time, you want to talk about your goodbye party? Will you eat a cake, or does it have to be boneless chicken breast?
Sure, 70-year-old Terry can eat whatever he wants. You are talking about my retirement party, right? 20 years from now.
Dude, you know I'm not talking about that. What do you think is going to happen at the end of the week?
I don't know, but I do know what's going to happen right now. Topic change. You ever wonder where wind starts? I have. Wind is crazy.
You need to face facts.
About wind? I'm trying, but you won't engage. Why are you in denial about wind, Rosa?
Commissioner Kelly.
Something's going on with one.
Rosa tells Terry he needs to face facts. But does he in fact need to face facts? Nothing has in fact happened. The transfer's in the future. Terry's upset about something that might happen, but there aren't really any facts. And even if Terry went ahead and faced these so-called facts, what would change or improve about his behavior? What if he's already faced the facts and decided this is what he wants to do? What's wrong with dealing with impending disappointment exactly how he's dealing with it? On top of all that, Rosa also contradicts herself in the scene. When Terry tries to change the topic to wind, Rosa tells him he's got to stop avoiding and start facing the facts. But then when she spots the subject of their current tale, she switches the topic herself. What Rosa has proven is that it's not in fact urgent for Terry to face facts. If it were, then getting Terry to admit to his quote-unquote reality would be more important than pursuing the target. But Rosa pursues the target, which proves, and this is a good lesson for next time you're acting all Terry Jeffords, which you are very justified and reasonable to do when someone decides to Rosa Diaz all over you, that someone else's need for you to face facts is almost always about them not wanting to face a reality in which one always faces more than one reality. Terry choosing to face multiple realities isn't a problem for Terry. It's a problem for Rosa. So Rosa wants Terry to stop doing it. Again, we're not talking about someone being in the singular kind of denial. If someone has just straight up convinced themselves that they don't have a heroin addiction or that white privilege isn't real, go ahead, shove their face in some facts. It won't make a difference, but it's a reasonable reaction. But Jeffords isn't in denial. He's in denial.
I meant we would get one from the morgue.
From the morgue? Man, we are always getting into the craziest situations. If I were leaving this squad, I'd miss these moments, but I'm not, so I won't.
Okay, seriously, what's going on with him?
It's a whole thing.
Is it going to screw up the plan?
It's more quietly self-destructive.
Sounds good. Terry, do you?
Now Jake has it figured out. Do you, Terry? That's exactly what I would have said. Now obviously Jake is saying it like it's a dismissal to get back to doing what he wants to do. Hence Rosa's, no, it's not an actual problem, just more self-destructive. But Jake's reaction accidentally turns out to be the right response. Terry is an adult. He got bad news. He's living in a liminal space between the sadness of it being real and the optimism of it not being real. He's not a deviant. He's just unusually explicit about what all of us experience in most situations in which we are catastrophizing about a hypothetical that nonetheless feels real. Jake does not need to peddle the face facts cliche on Terry. It's quite obvious Terry has already faced facts and made a decision. By the end of episode 18, I had expected some kind of a come-to-Jesus moment when Rosa gives Terry some moving cliche speech and Terry just breaks down and admits that he's been in singular denial the whole time. I was pleasantly surprised when, on the contrary, everyone actually gets on board with simply living in denial alongside Terry.
Could I have everyone's attention? I know it's my last day, and I've been in denial about it all week. And I still am. So I'm giving this toast for no reason. Here's to nothing.
You okay there, Terry?
It's just that if I wasn't in denial, I would be so depressed right now at the thought of leaving all of you.
Yeah, we'd be depressed too. If anything was happening, which it isn't.
Right. And I'm not going to say that no matter what precinct number is on your uniform, you will always be part of the 9-9.
It means so much to me that you aren't saying that right now.
And I want to say, I'm not going to miss you at all, you piece of crap. Good riddance.
Pretty sure you're misreading the game here, Charles.
Yeah, I see that now.
To nothing.
Thanks, guys. But this sucks.
Now, the closing line, when Terry comes out of both kinds of denial and finally says, this sucks, in a very literal acknowledgement of quote-unquote reality, would be trite and obvious if it weren't for two things. One, his literal statement doesn't have any kind of a aha moment behind it. It's understated, almost insignificant. I like that setup because it reinforces there was never really any denial in the singular sense happening. There was only denial. The refusal to refuse to acknowledge the transfer. Terry finally speaking literally about his situation instead of counterfactually isn't some sudden admission of awareness of the truth of the matter. He knew all along. It's just now he's speaking of it as factual instead of previously when he was speaking of it as counterfactual. But neither is more or less true. He was always perfectly aware of both. Terry's barely an admission is underwhelming for another important reason. Right after Jeffords finally speaks literally about his situation, Holt comes in and delivers the news that Terry is able to stay at the 9-9 because, season 7 spoiler alert, Holt is being demoted by his arch-rival, now police commissioner Madeline Wunsch. Holt's revelation vindicates Terry's behavior all along. If Holt could reveal that what Terry feared most, the transfer, isn't happening, then it means that what Rosa called the facts were in fact counterfactual all along. Let me lay it out. Factual. Terry is leaving the precinct. Counterfactual. Terry acts as if he's not leaving the precinct. Counterfactual. Holt changes the factual circumstance to Terry is not leaving, which reveals the original factual statement to have always been counterfactual because Terry was already living in a future that wasn't certain. Therefore, Rose's advice to, quote, face facts was always bad advice. Not only because Terry was facing facts the way a human being does by believing more than one contradictory thing at a time, but also because Terry was never dealing with facts. He was dealing with a future likelihood. If Rosa had said, Terry, come on, face your future likelihood, then her appeal to just face the truth would obviously be exposed for being crap. Face the facts only ever works because it's a cliche. Face your future likelihood would be the same as Rosa saying, come on, Terry, face the non-truth. See, it doesn't make any sense. But that's exactly what anyone is saying whenever they tell someone to face the truth or face the facts about a situation that, in fact, has everything to do with prediction, feeling, personal interpretation, and future probability. Now, if we're talking about literal facts, a factual, that's very different. Hypothetically, if someone were to tell our president, hey, the facts are that coronavirus is very contagious and it is currently spreading at a very well-calculated and non-hypothetical but extremely real rate of 7 to 1, that's an actual fact, not a future probability counterfactual. The statement, COVID is going to kill millions of people, might be a counterfactual, but the current rate of contagion based on empirical evidence about what has already happened is reality. Therefore, hypothetically, if the president were to say, don't test people, it's bad for my re-election, that would be a good example of someone actually refusing to face facts, not because they're in denial, but because they're in denial. Except now that denial isn't about someone's personal feelings as a grown adult, it's the lives and deaths of hundreds of millions of people. If Trump had hypothetically done all that, would saying he needs to face the facts or telling him to face the facts make any difference? No. You know how we know? It did happen, and people did tell him, and what did he do? He refused to acknowledge the data provided to him months and months prior to any overt action taken by the administration. According to Business Insider, a source too neoliberal to be spreading fake anti-Trump news, although to be fair, they're mostly quoting Politico, whom I trust, but whom I would understand you might want to fact check. Quote, in the early weeks of the coronavirus outbreak in the U.S., President Donald Trump's main focus was on keeping the number of infections low. For that reason, Trump did not push to ensure adequate testing capabilities. The president had made clear the lower the numbers on coronavirus, the better for the president, the better for his potential reelection this fall. Now, there's a lot of interpretations at which one could arrive following that short excerpt of a much longer story. But the one thing none of us should be concluding about this situation is that Trump, quote, refused to face facts, which I am just so tired of the media outlets saying because it isn't doing what they want it to do. Or perhaps it's doing exactly what they want it to do, which is to say basically nothing. Trump 100% absolutely faced the facts. He faced the facts and then decided how to act, which was to believe that the facts were true and to deny them all at the same time, probably internally and externally. He's not in denial. He's in denial. Except he's not a side character of a television show as much as you making memes about him continues to peddle that insidious explanation for his behavior. The president's denial becomes all of our denial. And running around urging him on Twitter to face facts is about as useful as Rose's appeal to Terry because denial isn't a factual contradiction. It's a very powerful rhetorical strategy. I'm going to say this once. For anyone from the news who might be listening, and I'm going to say it very slowly for the purposes of being quoted easily in a soundbite. The problem with Trump is not that he doesn't face facts. The problem is that he faces facts, and these are the decisions that he makes. In the words of Jake Peralta, Trump does him. And that's why we're all going to die. And also, everything is going to be fine.
Become a little less cliche with each new episode of Rhetorically Speaking dropping every Tuesday. Be sure to hit subscribe and leave a review on whatever app you use to listen. Don't be a digital freeloader, you're better than that.